You're listening to I Love This TV Show, The Golden Girls.
The Golden Girls, Season 2, Episode 17, Bedtime Story. Original air date, February 7th, 1987. In this episode, Blanche can't sleep and finds Sophia in the kitchen cooking. Rose made some chipped beef as well. Dorothy comes in the kitchen, excited that her Uncle Vito is coming to visit. Rose tells her that her cousin Milo is also coming for the Hog Expo. They discuss how they will accommodate both guests. Sophia tells a story about a cold snap when the heat gave out. Everyone wound up sleeping with Sophia because she had the electric blanket. Rose tried to fix the heater, but wound up turning on the air conditioner instead. Before Rose can sleep, she has to say her prayers. And while saying them, a voice suddenly thanks her and tells her to go to bed. Blanche thinks it was Dorothy, but she says it wasn't. Blanche suddenly breaks into prayer. The story finishes and they eat. Blanche tells a story about Rose freaking out in a thunderstorm. Some men had also escaped from prison. She wants to sleep with Blanche. Rose tells her about the St. Olaf slasher. He attacks scarecrows. They finally get in bed. Rose begs Blanche to tell her a story. It's a crazy story about elephant dolls that Blanche ends with a scary ending. Rose runs and hides in the closet. Back in the kitchen, most of the food is eaten. Dorothy finally is forced to eat Rose's chipped beef, but the power goes out. It comes back on and it's all gone. Sophia can barely lift her purse. Dorothy dumped it all in there. Dorothy changes the subject back to the house guests. Sophia tells the story of when Dorothy had bronchitis. While Sophia cares for her, Dorothy upsets Sophia. She apologizes and then tells her how she would make her feel better when she would be sick as a girl. Sophia has fallen asleep while Dorothy tells her a story. Back in the kitchen, Sophia says she was just resting her eyes, but that she heard every word. Then Blanche tells the story of when she went to a funeral with Rose and Dorothy. They got stuck at the train station because it left a half hour early. The next train is not till 5:30 a.m. the next day. They try to sleep on the benches. A train pulls in that has a circus on it. A bunch of clowns come in. Rose is excited. However, one of the clowns is mean to her. Back in the kitchen, Blanche talks about dating Floppo the clown for a few months after that. Blanche decides they should all chip in and put their family up at the Holiday Inn. They all agree. Favorite quotes? Blanche. You snore worse than a sailor passed out at an adult motel after a night of unbridled passion. Dorothy. Just turn up the heat, Ma. Sophia. It's already on 9. On 10, you can cook a lean cuisine. Rose. I've been tinkering with the heater, trying to get it to work. Dorothy. Oh, Rose, you're a genius. Sophia. Boy, that's a sentence you don't hear every day. Blanche. Well, it couldn't be any worse than trying to sleep on a cold, hard bench in a railway station. Sophia. Boy, you do it any place, don't you, Blanche? Blanche. This is like the Twilight Zone, where somehow we got on a train inside Rose's mind. Alright, so in this episode, it starts off where Rose and Sophia are both cooking in the kitchen. Sophia's doing this whole Italian feast, and Rose is doing chipped beef. Admittedly, I would probably pick the Italian feast because I'm Italian. I don't believe I've ever tried chipped beef. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I may have to look up a recipe just to see. But the fact that everyone reacts so violently to the thought of the chipped beef, I mean, their facial expressions, their body language, the things that they say. I mean, Sophia starts the whole thing, and then it's a chain reaction after that. But Sophia's kind of short and sweet about it, where others are just like, and they get a little more funky. And then Dorothy comes in and she's all excited about the call that she got, and Sophia already knows who it was and what it's about because she violated Dorothy's privacy and she listened into the call. Always an issue there. But it also causes a bit of a problem. There's a house guest situation. During the same week, Dorothy's Uncle Vito is going to come to visit, and so is Rose's cousin Milo. And there's really only enough room in the house to put up one house guest at a time if they're going to put up a bedroom. Now, I don't know why they couldn't just have somebody sleep on the couch. That works. I mean, my couch is a futon. Their couch, the cushions look comfy enough. It's doable. Or if somebody wants to camp out on the floor in the living room, it's a huge living room. But that's kind of the whole reason why they're having all this big meal in the kitchen. They're trying to figure out now what to do about these two house guests and where to put them. And while they're discussing all this, Sophia decides to tell a story about the heat going out. And I always get confused because they're in Miami. Wasn't aware that Miami gets freezing cold. And in this throwback story, this flashback, Blanche comes into the room. She's wearing a really big, heavy, lined winter jacket. And this is a jacket you would not expect to see in Miami. This is actually more like a jacket you'd expect to see in Rose's hometown of St. Olaf, Minnesota. They get snow, they get blizzards, they get real weather there. They do get some hurricanes in Miami in the 80s when the show takes place, but I don't think the jacket would help much. And then when they're all in bed together, this whole God prank that Dorothy pulls, clearly it's Dorothy's voice. She says, no, it's not me. But I mean, who else could it be? Because God's not really going to pop into this episode and say, oh, Rose, thank you for this lovely prayer. No, God's hearing like thousands and thousands and thousands of prayers every second of every day. He's got a lot on his plate. But I mean, clearly Dorothy says it because she wants Rose to shut up and stop praying. And because she has to go to work in the morning and she is just, well, cranky. Rose's prayer, I think, is really nice. She's not like the other ladies. They would most likely just pray for themselves. Oh, let me wake up feeling better. Let me get a pay raise. And if you're Blanche, let me find more men. Rose actually, she's praying for herself. She's also praying for the girls. And she's actually giving thanks to God for bringing the girls into her life, bringing her into the girls' lives, because they're all together in this situation instead of by themselves trying not to freeze to death. But then Blanche's reaction, oh my God, that is just too funny. When Dorothy denies that she said it, the look on Blanche's face, I mean, she is now literally scared to death. And the way she says, sweet Jesus, am I in trouble? Still makes me laugh. I can't say it as afraid as she does, but it's just like, oh my gosh, that is so funny because she's pretty much admitting she knows that a lot of what she does probably isn't what she should be doing. But at the same time, I mean, it is Blanche. Blanche is man crazy. Then they're back in the kitchen again. There's thunder, and it reminds Blanche of a time when Rose slept with her because she was afraid. And Blanche also takes advantage of the situation to frighten Rose nearly to death because there's also some escaped convicts. And even though they're several states over, Rose is so worried that they're going to come over to Miami. And Blanche winds up telling her this story to help her sleep, but it doesn't because she tells her that the escaped convicts are going to come and kill her in her sleep. And I mean, it's just a really cruel thing. It's one of the many examples of the way that some of the ladies act very, very cruelly to Rose. And then we have Dorothy and the chip beef. She is saved by a very short power outage. And during this power outage, she thinks fast and she grabs Sophia's purse and she dumps the whole of the chip beef into it to make it look like she cleaned the plate. And it's kind of the opposite of how she was acting because Sophia asked her to take another bite. And literally, she looks like someone's like torturing her as she tries to lift this fork to her mouth. So it's just kind of a mean expression. It's like if you care about someone, you can at least pretend to like something. Most of Dorothy's actions towards Rose do tend to be kind of cruel and mean, though. Sophia then tells a story about Dorothy and how much more horrible she is when she's sick. Sophia gave up her bed and slept in a chair for 3 nights to make sure that Dorothy recovered from her illness. And because Dorothy's being so horrible, she also lays a very well-deserved guilt trip on Dorothy. And that finally brings her back to her senses, and she apologizes. And that apology was definitely overdue. And in this apology, she also tells a story about how Sophia took care of her when she was sick as a kid. And then the next story surprises Sophia because she didn't know the woman had passed away. She had just sent her a chain letter, and now, she could get bad luck. That's not good. But in this story, they all get stuck at a train station, and Rose tries to be positive while the rest are really, really cranky. And they all turn on her, of course. And then there's a clown train that appears, and no one's excited about this except for Blanche. She winds up getting a man out of it. And I have to say, though, the clowns, they were in full costume and makeup, and it just always creeps me out. And it still does every time I watch this episode. Especially the one that Rose asked to cheer them up. He's not just rude, but the way he looks and that wig and stuff, he reminds me of Pennywise from It. It's just extra creepy. The end always cracks me up. Sophia opens up her purse when she goes back to the stove, and she finds that it's full of the missing chipped beef. And she goes to work adding seasoning and such, and then she tastes, and more seasoning, tastes, and then suddenly she's announcing how good this chipped beef is. And Dorothy clearly now looks embarrassed because the secret's out, and Rose turns around and looks at her completely shocked as the episode ends because she didn't realize what was going on either. And it's actually really one of my favorite Rose looks in the show. My other favorite Rose look is in the episode called The Triangle, when she tries to seduce Elliot to get to the truth about how he made a pass behind Blanche's back while dating Blanche at Dorothy. But yes, a great episode of The Golden Girls, as always. Thanks for tuning in to the I Love This TV Show podcast. If you would like to make a donation in support of this podcast, you can through Cash App to Pasta26MC. That's pasta like the food, the number 2, the number 6, M as in monkey, C as in cat. If you would like to sponsor this podcast or advertise on it, please send an email to podcast@pastasworld.com. As always, you can go to pastasworld.com for more information.